Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on the program. This Monday morning, we'll be joined by our next guest virtually, who is currently in our studios in Uyo to discuss his state Delta and from the perspective of the political calculations in a spate of recent defections. We've also seen the accusations of Delta tilting into a one-party state, notably since most of the political actors in the legislative arm of government have defected from the People's Democratic Party to the APC. Now, this morning on the program, we're joined by the Commissioner of Works, Rural Roads and Public Information, Mr. Charles Aniagwu. Good morning to you, Honorable Commissioner, sir. Can you hear me?
Well, how are you doing in Abuja?
Very well, thanks for asking, sir. It's you're the first guest who has asked me how I'm doing this morning. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm enjoying the wonderful ambience in Uyo.
Good to hear. Now let's get straight into the conversations. I'll be very blunt this morning. And my first question is, do you see Delta State as being a one-party state in regards to the recent defections?
I don't know what that means. What I know is that in politics, even if you have 2 or 3 persons in a particular party, it's still in existence. It means that that party is capable of further mobilizing, and then going forward, they can perhaps win some seats, starting from the councillorship, or perhaps the local government chairman, or also the House of Assembly, or probably the House of Reps and the Senate before you talk about the governor. But the fact is that in our own part of the world, once you have where the governor is seated, people will believe that that is the only party that is functional. That's not true. Before now, the government, the PDP, who now joining with all of us in the PDP moved into the APC, that does not mean that the PDP is dead. There are individuals who can afford to on their own decide where they want to be. But what we know is that we made that movement all in the overall interest of the development of our dear state. And so nobody has scrapped the name of any of the political parties from the INEC register. It's also due parties to take steps. And let me also observe quickly that even going forward, other new parties, as individuals are allowed to come together to also form new political parties. There is no cap on the number of political parties that we can have. This is not the military era where we had there at the time, where we had only 2 political parties, the SDP and the NRC. And then you were not allowed to form any other one. You either belong to this one or you belong to that. But what we're having now is what you could call some form of political evolution. And as we make progress, we will get to that level where possibly you have parties that are strong, and then you could have other parties that are restricted to other regions, like as in this case at the moment you have a party like ABGA that has remained in the southeast, or perhaps also you could have a party that moves beyond 1 region to 2 regions, or a national party like the PDP, the APC, and then not long ago the Labour Party also fell category in terms of the other person they were able to produce. In spite of the fact that they have just a governor, they also do have other members across the country. Forward, what you are seeing in our political evolution is what happens to be a tradition. Tradition don't just come by one act. It comes by a tradition of a particular norm, and then it becomes the norm, it becomes of the people. So to answer your question straightforward, nobody is wishing and asking for one-party state in any of the states or even in the federation.
Well, Honorable Commissioner, I appreciate your background to this concept of defections and how it goes by allowing for political parties play out in the state. But when it concerns the legislative arm of government, where over time in Nigeria it's been almost accused of being the wife of a husband in terms of the executive, what does this do for the parliament in Delta, where 21 members, including the speaker, are now APC members? People talk about needing 2/3 majority to vote on certain issues, and now since a political party is even more than 2/3 in itself, does it give for room for any deviation from the norm that it is almost the wife of a husband in Delta State?
You must realize that in any political play, it is not only the participants that are seen that are actually in the field of play. We have voters who most of the time are in the majority. That individuals contest for different positions and they are in the forefront. Not automatically mean that these other actors are not having a swing in terms of the direction to and so even if today you have seen a number of persons gravitating into it, which for us we have taken that decision in the development of, perhaps when the next election comes, if we are able to provide good governance, we're able to galvanize the people, what is paramount is not the number of political parties. It is the destination to go to. And what is that destination? Productivity, growth, and of course, the well-being of the people. So if we want, as it is in China, the Communist People's Party is able to provide for you those things that you need, you could also have some concentric forces that could become controversy. Even some form of leaders wanting to have their own ideas, and then you have some form of conspiracy within that concentric circle, that they are in one party but they could disagree, and that disagreement could still of a good even within the same party as it is in China. So we are all in APC does not mean that you are not likely going certain tendencies that will drag in one while another pull in another direction. And at the end of the day, individuals within that same party, that party ideology, are able that will become the benefit of the people. What is most important is that the people want to govern properly. The people want to have the best of life that government can provide. The people want their money to work for them. So even if that is able to provide those ultimate, that you have party, 300 political parties, and the people are not getting good governance, how does that benefit the people? What is important is not the political party.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, you're talking about the people here. The electorates in Delta went into the last election circle to vote for candidates under the umbrella of the PDP. But those candidates they voted for today have dumped that umbrella and now are with the APC. Does this somewhat make for granted the votes that they got from those persons who voted for them under the umbrella of the former party?
I hope you're also aware that even those who voted, some of them have even migrated even before those they voted for. The issue of freedom of movement, freedom of association, expression, and that of interaction is very well enshrined, and it is actually an inalienable right of the people to take such decision. I have told you that during an evolutionary period, certain issues, certain procedures, certain behaviors manifest. A time will come, they begin to settle. It's just like when you pour some powdery substance into some other solution like either water. When you stir it, you could see some rubbles, but after some time they begin, and of it you will see them now settle as concentrate. What it means is that
hello, sir, are you still with us? Well, it may seem as though the network is acting up a bit, but it's still on the conversations of the defections, and Mr. Charles is making a strong case that despite the governor of Delta State, Chief Oborewori, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, and 21 members defecting from the People's Democratic Party to the PDP, that this also does not entirely mean that the PDP in the state is non-functional or, in his words, dead. He's also insinuating that most of the electorates in Delta State have also tilted towards the APC in their quest for good governance, which he says would be instructive in the way the next voting trajectory takes place in Delta State come 2027. It's on the hopes of getting the connection back that I would ask my next question, because earlier on, we looked at a publication on the Daily Trust newspaper where the headline said, automatic tickets, contracts, fueling defections to APC. It's almost like a statement of the federal might. And once the presidency and the government at the center is under the All Progressive Congress, it almost feels as though the opposition, who ought to play its role as opposition in preferring alternative solutions to the myriad of challenges plaguing Nigeria, has its bigwigs jumping ship. The big question is, what is actually fueling these defections on the part of the big wigs within political parties. For the electorates, much like Mr. Charles said, they might be swayed by the promise of better alternatives in terms of the delivery of good governance to the people. Let me attempt to see if we still have Mr. Charles on the connection this morning. Hello, Mr. Charles, can you hear me? Well, whilst we wait for that connection to buffer, it's a big question this morning. The reports are that it's almost like as though the mathematical calculations going into the next election has it that the government at the center, in its federal might, would clinch many states, particularly in terms of the numbers needed to produce the presidency. The 2023 general elections had a tight running. Most of the issues on the calculations of 2/3, including the FCT, made for good conversations. It was taken to the Election Petitions Tribunal, and we saw the rulings. For the first time, a lot of persons started drawing the fine margins in how presidential outcomes of the elections are made. But whilst for the governorship and the House of Assembly elections down in Delta, it may seem as though, particularly in Delta, it would be a straight swing for the APC. Would this be translated into the presidential elections coming to 2027? It's off the back of a big statement made by the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who in his comments over the weekend said that even members within the APC are looking towards talks of this merger party as the coalition talk grows even stronger. This morning they have offered an olive branch to the Labour Party's presidential candidate in the last election, Mr. Peter Obi, to come and take the vice presidential position in this coalition party. Big questions are, would the SDP also join members from the PDP, the APC, in the words of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and the LP in forming this coalition party? What would this portend going into 2027? Whilst the APC, in the meeting they had yesterday, saw key party stakeholders, to include the APC National Chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, say that there is no vacancy in 2027 and that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is thereby endorsed as the party's candidate for a second term. How would these political calculations shape the journey of a party that is currently being criticized in terms of its bold reforms to reposition Nigeria's economy to where it ought to be? Now, the party would be clocking its midterm come May 29, 2 years of being in governance under the Renewed Hope mandate. How far has it delivered on her promises to Nigerians? It's the post-subsidy regime, and some of the monies that have been shored up and saved up from the removal of subsidy have been disbursed to states under the federal allocation. Has this indeed translated to the Renewed Hope? Many say that the governors also have a part to play in this promise to Nigerians. Now let's go back to our Uyo studios. I'm hoping that the network is much better, and then we can hear Honorable Charles as he rejoins the conversation. Honorable Charles, I don't know if you can hear me now. Welcome back. I can see you, but I'm waiting to get the audio on my end. If you can hear me, let's pick up from where you left off.
Hear you.
Brilliant, I can hear you now. Let's pick up from where you left off. We're talking about the Delta people also jumping ship beyond the political actors.
I was saying that even when people move in any democratic setting, there are a whole lot of issues that happens. The people are monitoring. Those of us that moved, have we been able to add more value to their life? Are we going to give room for individuals who belong to other tendencies to come to them and say, look at these people, they have not been able to do this and this and that? And because the people are always looking for where their welfare is improved, if we are able to improve their welfare like we are doing today, and we're able to add more meaning to what they look forward to, that government should be able to do for them, we will have majority of these people queuing behind us. But if on the other way that does not happen, whether in Delta or elsewhere, individuals who belong to certain tendencies will now have the opportunity of engaging in this concentric circle of controversy, of a conspiracy, and able to have people who will follow them. So that is why the fear of one-party state should not be that pronounced. Because if you become a one-party state, for instance, and you are able to add more value, and the people are able to get their freedom, why do you need 3 million parties who may not at the end of the day be able to provide you that welfare? I'm not saying we should begin one party state, but I'm saying in effect that where we are, one party state is not possible. What is possible is that a group of individuals should be able to add value to the people they govern, so that the people they govern will continue to endorse them going forward.
Now, the big question is on what is fueling these defections. A publication earlier today stated that it is the subject of automatic tickets and contract awards that are fueling some of these defections. In your opinion, is this the case in Delta?
To join, who is the one to give contract? So it's not about who is looking for contract. I had said at the time we were even moving that the at that time was very strong in the state to be able to win any election, but that we seem to have some form of arbitrage at the level of the national executive committee of the working committee of the party, and that if you win and there are issues like what former President Olusegun Obasanjo described as K-leg in the case of Rotimi Amici in 2000, he emerged as a governorship candidate of the PDP in Rivers, that there seemed to be some form of K-leg at the national level of the party, and that K-leg was capable of making us to proceed into a direction that ordinarily we wouldn't want to proceed, and that if it is not solved, and we have seen that there seem to be a number of individuals who ordinarily should have been part of the physician or doctors to solve or cure this ailment, but obviously they tend to be part of those introducing certain level of virus that made the ailment to become very much pronounced, and that as wise men we cannot sit back and take on a journey with people who we believe were on the same ship in another direction that was not capable of getting us to become competitive enough. And it was obvious that some leaders of the party were not positioning the party to be competitive. And if that is the case, why do we need to sit back and prepare to lose an election when our destination is to be able to win an election, again form a government, and continue along the developmental trajectory that Oborowori has brought to bear in Delta State? Those were the reasons that, of course, informed the decision we took in Delta. It has nothing to do with single ticket, neither has it anything to do with.
I'm talking about the PDP and the issues therein. The former Senate President, Bukola Saraki, had been saddled with the responsibility of forming a reconciliatory committee to bring aggrieved members back to the table and find a way to strengthen the party ahead of 2027. Do you think that this move would somewhat strengthen your former party's efforts at juicing all those who are gruntled? We now hear that Southeast APC caucus are also looking to defect as well over the position of the national scribe, which they believe should go to Ude Okoye.
Who is disgruntled or who is aggrieved? There are issues of people who being aggrieved, apart from possibly one or two persons. What is at stake is that the leadership have not been able to provide that kind of leadership that most do look forward to. A leadership that could guarantee that once you have a ticket, that ticket is secured and protected. It's like when you secure the ticket of an airline to travel in one of their, possibly from Uyo to Lagos, that the pilot who is to fly that particular equipment is not seeing very clearly, that form of visual impairment. And much as you are looking forward to having that ticket, you do not want to proceed mid-air and then you crash and possibly fall down, which at the end of the day may either determine your political life or your own life as a human being. And so nobody wants to just progress in that direction. What has happened is that we were in an aircraft that was sailing smoothly, and all of a sudden we just discovered that there's some engine problem that was capable of causing some form of crash mid-air, and that all the effort to get it solved was not yielding the necessary result that we anticipated. And so once individuals in the party, the leaders of the party, were able to take a decision that could assure those who are left behind in that party, perhaps they can begin to put together the parts that have already disintegrated and begin to rebuild. We need formidable opposition in Nigeria. That one is not anything I think any well-meaning Nigerian will contest. But that formidable opposition must be strong enough as those of us who are in the ruling party to take decisions that will speak to the well-being of the people. If you are not able, the people in power may become so relaxed and begin to in their actions according to their own whims and caprices. If you don't want that to happen, let there be a watchdog in the form of an opposition member or party. Besides, I also want to challenge the media like you are doing this morning, and I'm very happy about the questions you have. That beyond also these questions, you continue to interrogate the activities of both the ruling party and the activities of the opposition party, because whether we like it or not, irrespective of the political parties we belong, first and foremost, one Nigerian. And as being people that are from the same country, it should be in our own enlightened interest, whether in the ruling or in the opposition party, to support actions that are capable of making our country be, so that our children do the tendency to want to look forward to other countries in the form of the Japa syndrome, which has become very, very pervasive and prevalent length and breadth of this country. Good governance is the key, and all these, the opposition being formidable, the media being strong enough, as very well stated in section 22 of the 1999 Constitution, that has that onerous responsibility of holding government accountable to the people. Once that is done, you will have a country that functions, not only for those of us in the ruling party or for the rich, but it functions also for the people you may want to call the hoi polloi, that is the masses. And so I will urge that you continue along this trajectory, so that going forward, even if the opposition becomes weak, use the media to wake them up, because you have that responsibility as given to you in section 22 of the Nigerian Constitution, my brother.
Now, Honorable Commissioner, it's at a time when in the next few days we'll begin to discuss the midterm scorecard of the current administration, 2 years down the line, with the amount of criticisms the current government is receiving for taking some certain decisions in a bid to renew the hope of Nigerians and strengthen our economy. Many Nigerians feel that some governors also should share in the blame, since there have been increased allocations from the removal of fuel subsidy. The deliverance of governance with regards to the minimum wage, CNG, and other promises that have been made is yet to reflect in the speed and pace that Nigerians thought that it would after 2 years of having an APC government at the center. Care to make any comments in this regard?
Introduced me, you said the Commissioner for Works, Rural Roads and Public Information in Delta, so which means I'm very well positioned to speak about the developments and issues in Delta. As per the new university that I just gained admission a few weeks ago, I have not settled down to be able to know who are the HODs and then possibly the dean of the, let alone understanding the courses, for me to be able to tell you how well the lecturers have been able to put across the knowledge that they should impart on the students. So that makes me very, very incapable of passing a judgment on the issues you have raised in that direction. But if you want me to speak as to what we have done in the last 2 years in Delta, I will tell you that Governor Borowori have very passionately discharged himself in line with the promise, which is well encapsulated in the more agenda, and more means meaningful development opportunities for all, realistic reforms, and of course enhanced peace and security in Delta. On this 4 plank, which is what you may call a score sheet or possibly the marking scheme, you will discover that Oborowori have kept faith with this and the agenda that he put forward before the people of Delta. In the area of infrastructure, he has been able to give credence to the needs of the people and vis-a-vis the promises he made. In the area of realistic reforms, he has been able to put that across, creating also as well as opportunities for all, even as a whole lot of efforts has been made and is still being made in the area of improving the security situation in our dear state Delta. So that is the only area where I am very capable. But you give me time to at least settle down in this my new university, so that by the time I understand all the dean of faculties and the head of departments, I will progress to look at the different lecturers and then perhaps examine the courses that I'm going to undertake in that institute for me to be able to pass a judgment and possibly also make my own contribution as to how well certain courses need to be tweaked to be able to reflect the developmental desires of the students who are in that particular institute or that particular faculty. Otherwise, I will be progressing in error.
Honorable Commissioner, you couldn't have chosen a better analogy to simplify or explain the reasons why you wouldn't want to speak about the government and the center, but rather focus on your state Delta. And I must agree with you. Now, I'm talking about the need for formidable opposition. I don't know if you'd have a better analogy to explain these conversations on the only opposition that might be formidable enough would need to see 2 or 3 more parties come together to challenge the APC. This is the school of thoughts of many Nigerians and even the political actors themselves, as we see them talking about the need for a coalition or a mega party to serve as a strong opposition going into the next election cycle. What are your thoughts on this?
I remember very well when Governor Akpabio was the governor of Akwa Ibom, and as a key player at that time, I was always visiting Akwa Ibom. And all the time he says, you cannot be led into the bush, escorted by a lion, and you begin to be scared of antelopes. Because once you are being led by the lion, you know that each time the antelope try to bring up his head, you really have a very strong backing. How do I mean? Today, if you go into the bush, what is opposing you may be the kind of wild animals that are in the bush. So it's between you and the wild animals. But in the political setting and in our Nigerian situation, the opposition are human beings. The people we govern and those of us who govern them, whether they belong to any political party or the other. Now, the assessment will be how well you have been able to add value to the life that they live. Once you add that value, you would have reduced the tendencies of individuals who will oppose you. Or perhaps those who want to govern an interest. You would have also been able to reduce the issues that they could raise for them to have more number of persons aligning with their own interest. And so, we must be able to look at Nigerians as the people who should either support or oppose the actions that we want to push forward. And if that is the case, now it behoves on those of us who are fortunate to be in government to begin steps that are capable of adding value to the life they live on a daily basis. And so, if the Nigerian people in the course of time believe that things are not being done properly, they have a right to be able to make choices that are capable of putting them in a different direction that will make life much more livable. So for us who are now privileged to be presiding over their life, it is also up to us to know that what is in the best interest of the people should become our preoccupation, so that these same people that we govern do not become now the mass of the opposition. Whether you want to form a coalition of political parties, or you want to form mergers of political parties, you are ending up bringing individuals. That is what you mean. That's the ABC of it all. That you want individuals who perhaps are having particular tendencies, united by certain forces, coming together to take a decision that is possibly capable of bringing a swing like we had in 2015. So, those of us who are in the ruling party, it is in our own enlightened self-interest to be able to take decisions that will add value, that make these people that we govern and who will always return to seek their mandate, to begin to see the need to identify with us. And they will identify with us based on the fact that we're adding value to the lives they live, and that at the end of the day, we are beginning to take steps to make them realize that democracy indeed has some very wonderful elements, what we call dividends, as it is in the case of Nigeria. Otherwise, we will be progressing in error, and I want to believe our leaders at the national level are very much aware of these issues, and I want to also believe that they will take decisions going forward that is capable of engineering this kind of support that we do look forward to amongst our people, irrespective of the state they live.
Now, one thing I must give you credit for, Honorable Commissioner, is your emphasis and focus on people-driven projects. I'd like for us to understand the situation well, using Delta State as a case study. We see that the Ministry of Works in Delta State has been unbundled, whereby we have a commissioner dedicated to urban road projects, while we have another, yourself, dedicated to rural and riverine road projects. What informed this decision to unbundle the Ministry of Works, and how is this working relationship giving the people of Delta the best infrastructures and social amenities they need in this regard?
Government of Right Honorable Elder Francis Oburu was very much desirous of ensuring that we're able to reach out to the people, because Delta is divided into what you call the coastal communities that are largely riverine. There are some other rural communities that were not largely reached before now, the urban centers, and of course some other corridor that is described or classified as highway. So you have the Ministry of Works that is in charge of urban and highways being handled by my colleague, while I'm handling that of rural and these riverine roads, as well as the Ministry of Information. So why that is so is because government wanted to be able to have a closer supervision of the many projects. As I speak to you, the budget of the both ministries put together is almost close to what you have in some states, because we have almost, for infrastructure a road in the area of road, we have close to 300 billion. And so if you want to have a proportion of these amount of funds and being able to reach out to the people, the governor felt that he needed to be able to have individuals. Let me tell you, in Delta, given the amount of work that the governor is handling, even if you even commissioner for works in charge of highway, commissioner for works in charge of commissioner for works in charge of riverine, commissioner for works in charge of rural roads, commissioner for works of urban, which is about 5 now. My brother, you will all of them having more than enough work to do, because each of those different segmentation will even have more than 50 billion for them to supervise in the course of the year. So it was done for the purpose of closer supervision of projects and for us to be on top of the things that we do, rather than just having one very huge and then one person just holding sway but is not able to reach out, and at the end of the day governor is not able to get all the kind of speed he desires. Don't forget, governor will not have the time to visit every community on daily basis because he has so many other things he's looking at, different other sectors. But even as I speak to you, in charge of riverine and rural roads, it's not even easy. Most of the rural roads, because we're not talking about roads that are in hundreds. And so it is for that purpose of having an efficient management and ensuring that we have value for led to the unbundling of the ministry, because Delta is big enough to be able to spend the kind of funds that you see as the #1 oil producing state. We wanted to be able to speed up the process of infrastructure development in our state, which is why we have remained #1. We became #1 because we took projects to the people, particularly our brothers and sisters in oil-bearing communities, and the pipelines that convey this oil that has become a national asset have now become less attractive. And what they now look forward to is those development in their communities. And once you bring the development and you are not telling them that it's in the pipeline, they will not navigate towards the pipeline looking for the projects, because now they can see the projects on ground. And for those projects to come very quickly, we needed more hands to be able to supervise them so that we're able to move with the kind of speed that we do desire as a state.
Now, Honorable Commissioner, sir, yesterday there were large conversations on the need to catch up with the spate of developments in cities like Lagos. The Major Isaac Adaka Boro Day was commemorated in the Niger Delta. Some of our correspondents speaking to those commemorating the day fielded in reports saying that some of the youths are asking the question of when we'd see the likes of the third mainland bridge like we have in Lagos replicated across the Niger Delta, and even the issue of the East-West Road. How can we hold government at the center accountable to deliver on a project that has taken decades to complete? I don't know if these conversations did also catch your attention and what you care to say in response to the need to catch up on the spate of developments using funds gotten from Niger Delta and oil-producing communities much like yours in Delta to fund other infrastructural projects across Nigeria other than focus on the Niger Delta.
Building a whole lot of bridges. But let me emphasize for the records, bridges are built to bridge a gap, which means there is a gap somewhere. It could either be a water body, or perhaps a ravine that you need to be able to bring together, or perhaps at a junction where you need people to ease transport to move upwards in form of a flyover so that others can move underneath. So once you advocate that a particular bridge will have to be built, you don't need to begin to look at it, which is aimed at facilitating movement from the people in to the island and then passing through part of the Atlantic Ocean to be able to connect these two very important in Lagos State. We are doing same by way of connecting people. For instance, as I speak today, the government have completed the Beneku Bridge. The Beneku Bridge passes through Riase Creek, which is a divide between the good people of Indokwa West and the Indokwa East. Today, they have been linked together by that bridge, and they no longer have to now up onto a particular kind of boat that usually, or barge, that conveys vehicle unity. If we move from there, not long ago, still crossing through that particular river, the Asabase River, we are also building a bridge which is called the Asabase Bridge, linking the good people Uzere in Isoko South to in Asabase in Indokwa East. That is being done. If you also proceed to the Ijo area, particularly specifically Burutu, we are fast tracking the process of constructing the Ayak Bridge to link up the good people of Ugeli South and their brothers who are also in Burutu, particularly Ayokromo and some other communities in that corridor. That particular bridge has as much as 18 span of 34 meters each. You can see what that means. Now, when you live there, in Ode Shekiri, we have the Transwari Bridge. That part of bridges, as I speak, are 19 bridges connecting different communities in that corridor. If you come to the city, through the Asaba Ugeli, we also have the Ubu Bridge, the Borwori administration. Even as the Okowa administration was able to also build a flyover to be able to make it easy for people coming to Lagos and possibly going towards the southeast to drive through the flyover, while the other person that are in transactions can move under the bridges by way of having some roundabout under the bridge. So what am I trying to say? There are a whole lot of bridges that are being built, but it does the third mainland bridge in terms of length, because you must begin to discover where are you joining together. And secondly, is connectivity amongst the people. You would build possibilities either in the area of people having to transact business, or for brothers and sisters to be able to get closer, knit together by these bridges of possibilities. And so that is being done. We are being able to now move into the central government. Also, possibly have some form of attraction, because they say that when you are in the business of rabbit hunting, it is easier to pluck leaves that are very close to the rabbit, block the exit point, than going too far away. Now we are very close to the rabbit hole. By associating with the central government, it becomes easier for us to have more interaction with the central government, so that at the end of the day, we are able to use those leaves that are very close to the rabbit hole in the business of rabbit hunting to block the hole and prevent the rabbit from escaping. And so there are many advantages that you gain when you are in the stream, and those advantages are beginning to trickle in. We contribute to the Nigerian nation being number one in oil production. We are the number one mistake to the federal our advantage position as an oil producing state. We want to be able to take advantage of the contribution that makes the Nigerian nation to be solvent on account of our. For us to also, I also know that if a man is out of those who are it will be very, very unfair for that person to be hungry and be malnourished when those who are in the sitting room are already very well fed. Because even if you don't the food, once in a while, you pretend as if it's falling, and the big man in the are attracted to it the way it is. Just bringing it to be part of the main alignment, having been in the opposition for over almost 10 years.
Now, Honorable Charleston, a little less than 10 minutes which is left on this conversation. I'd like us to speak to the issue for the demand of state creation, the Anioma states. Back in the 1950s, the illustrious son, Chief Dr. Dennis Osadebe, began this thought. It's now been re-echoed by Senator Ned Nwoko, and also backed by his colleague from Delta South, Senator Joel Thomas, who all believe that Delta State is ripe indeed for the creation of the Anioma state. What's your position on this demand for the Anioma state creation?
Any challenge, if the federal government or the nation find the need to create more states. But we must be able to keep our eye on the ball. And what is the ball in this instance? Development. If existing as a state in Delta will bring development to the good people of both Anioma, our Robo brothers, and of course our Ijo, Ishekiri, and Isoko brothers, why don't us embrace this togetherness so that in our large size we can begin to command a whole lot of commanding height amongst the committee of states. Sometimes you see political actors, because they believe they could become disadvantaged on account of their political aspiration in a bigger circle, they begin to look for a smaller circle and then hide under the umbrella of development of that circle. Meanwhile, the overriding interest is how they can become champions, even when their communities become failures. So to that extent, any agitation, whether for the creation of a particular state, in any existing state at the moment, for me, must be interrogated around the tendency of advancing development of the people, rather than the political advancement of the political actors who are making such demands. I am very comfortable as a Deltan, at least amongst ourselves, that today we say that are not the carry last. It is due to the contribution of these major 5 ethnic groups that I have mentioned earlier, the Isokos, the Shekiris, the Anyomans, and of course our brothers in the Urobo land. Once all of us continue along this trajectory, that development become the focus. Let me tell you, my brother, even when you defeat an Anyoma state, you could see tendencies where individual, because in Anyoma, we also have the Indokwa people, we have the Ika people, we have the Anyocha people, and we have the Oshimili people. Each of these individuals, in the course of time, will also begin to agitate. We cannot begin to atomize and think that and begin to think that such atomization, if there's anyone, is what's going to bring about development. With the resources at our disposal, once we are able to do that, my brother, I am sure you'll fly. You don't even know who is the pilot, but confidence and to destination, believe that who is of operating that particular equipment you to your destination. And once you arrive at your destination, you are happy because you are going to realize the reason that made you to travel in the first instance. How do I mean? If we have leaders who are able to ensure that we have development as it is outside the shores of this country, we will see that the need for people to begin to have atomization physical entity will become less attractive. Oftentimes in this country, we need our energy to certain things that do not really matter, the main issues. I don't want to, because we may not have so much time, to talk about also view on the issue of zoning and not zoning. Zoning has become very, very ethnocentric in their views. President, who is from Namoda, and is taking decisions that makes my people in a land to enjoy the benefit that God has given to our country. Why do I need my younger brother to become the president when what I need is for me to be able to live a stable life? They migrate to that we are having our people, whether it is the doctors or all the other professionals, jabbering to, I use that word to enjoy certain poetic license, to say that those countries, when they get there, do they know where those leaders and those presidents come from? What they see is a functional society. So my brother, let us begin to advocate for society and leaders begin to take value. I had mentioned earlier in this conversation that in the Oborowori agenda, there is what we call meaningful development as well as opportunities. Come and see what Oborowori is doing in Delta. Oborowori is from the Urobo ethnic extraction. But that is not in any way having leaning to the Urobo people. Earlier in your introduction, you introduced me as somebody running 2 ministries. Ministry of Works, Rural Riverine Rules, as well as Ministry of Information. Perhaps to come from Urobo, they will say, look, ministers. So we need leaders like that who can take decision even in development that will cut across. Once you have that, even if the man is coming back, he will see his ethnic group. Even is putting on the table. So please, take advantage of the provision of Section 22 that makes it clear that the rest of the media is to hold government table to advocate leaders to become broad-minded, but not to become ethnic-minded, for us not to have tribesmen, national persons who are patriotic enough to be men that will think about Nigeria rather than the small area where they can become local champions in one small port. It's better that they go into the bigger ocean and expand, because that place is capable of accommodating every fish.
Well, Honorable Commissioner, I must thank you. You're a man of many words, especially with the use of some very potent parables for only those who have keen ears to decipher what you're saying. But we appreciate you for taking our time to grace us with your wisdom and words this morning.
Of ADBN, I'm very impressed with the milestones you have been able to record in such a very short period. I'm very happy that you're already competing very, very favorably with the big boys in the industry, and I look forward to this very heady competition. I'm also say that I enjoy your anchorage of this program, even as we do hope that going forward, Nigerians will begin to see the need to navigate towards the ADBN, because you are actually making a whole lot of progress in what you are doing. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your management.
You're welcome, sir. We appreciate the compliments as well. That was Mr. Charles Aniagwu, the Commissioner for Works, Rural and Riverine Roads in Delta State, who also doubles as Commissioner for Public Information in Delta, sharing with us the mandate under the MORE acronym of the current Delta State Governor, Chief Oborewori, and speaking to the issues of party defections as it concerns the state legislative arm, where the Speaker and 21 members defected from the PDP to the APC, saying that this does not in any way give credence to the one-party state structure, but the emphasis is on people-oriented governance in delivering the dividends of democracy.